loved, and definitely after less more speaking, I am already jealous that the room is biased. He has taken all the marks, so clap for him. And you know, he's done this for quite some time, and he's also knowledgeable. And of course, merging the Bible with knowledge, then you have a complete person, right? So we applaud all the speakers who have spoken prior, and let us give them a big hand clap. So, what do we want now? And when do we want it? So when you go... You want it before lunch? Because climate justice talk, the work is a continuous process. You can say now, but you must do something. Even when you're tweeting, most times I meet people who are saying we are activists and all that, but when I go to their pages, social media, because social media can tell me who you are. I'm a young... Actually, I graduated from being a youth. I realize now I'm getting older. But when I go to their social media, everything they're talking about is so different. So if you're a champion, I want to see that henceforth you're going to talk about climate justice everywhere you go, and it should be a continuous process, right? So how many of us are going to be activists? Are already? No, I don't like that way of raising hands. Because as young people, for me, I was taught when I was at university in Makerere, always stand out of the crowd, that is it. So when they tell me who is ready to do this, I am the first because I know what I want. So how many of us are going to remain silent? Raise up your hands. No. Yes, I know what I'm asking. How many of us are going to remain silent? Raise up your hands. And how many, because of the injustice that we are facing, not only as a continent of Africa, but globally we are the most affected. How many are saying we are going to stand up? And standing up means taking action in different ways. Can you raise up your hands? Thank you for those who have raised your hands. Could you clap for yourselves? And for those who have not raised your hands, I actually don't know what you came to do here. You are as good as marching outside because I've seen you. So clap for yourselves again, those who raised your hands. Pastor Ezekiel is here, and I'm told what you testify, right, on earth is what will happen when you go to heaven. For those who believe in God, like I do, I know that already those who raise their hands, there are those who are going to go and be our champions globally. Like on Dr. Jamishi was talking about the time I went to Parliament. How many people are 25 here? 25 years. And 25 and below. And below. Okay? And how many are 30 and below? Okay? Okay, 40 upwards. All right. So sampling in this room, it means that majority of the people here are in the most active age. Are in the most. So by now, by the fact that you just picked, maybe you applied online for this program, or otherwise, by the fact that you just took an action and said, I want to be part of the 2024 cohort 4, and you were taken up to be in Kenya today, please applaud yourself. You're a great person. And I know there are those people who don't like clapping and they just concentrate on their phones. Please, if your neighbor has a phone, just grab it and keep it. You're live streaming. Okay, so I forgive you. Although the internet here is not very good, so I'm wondering which internet, Wi-Fi you're using. However, I want to assure you when you're here, this is a great platform. I am making 40 soon. Yes, that is how old I'm getting. And in my age, at least I've won like 4 medals globally. Forward. Do you know why? I won the Mandela Washington Fellowship Medal for climate activism. I won the Young People's Medal for climate activism, young women. I have won so many recognitions, even in Uganda. So, when you get here as young people, this is not just a platform for just coming and it's a platform for sharing ideas, networking, and going home and understanding what you're able to do in Senegal, in Sao Tome and Principe, because I'm told there are 89 countries here, in Kenya, in Uganda, this is a great platform, and for me, this is my second time to come to address the use of the Nairobi Summer School on Climate Justice. And I can assure you, if you don't invite me for this platform, I will demand for it, Pakja, because this is the greatest platform I've known of. I came to this platform last year, but this time I've been moving around the globe. Everywhere I go, I get young people, and they are saying they are alumni of the Nairobi Summer School. They are the ones in the panels. They are the ones, they have initiatives. They are active. They are doing some work. And you, what are you going to do? But because the world suffers, not because of the ignorance of the people, but the silence of the majority who are knowledgeable and are quiet. So where are you going to be? Among the majority, the ignorant and the silent, or those who are going to demand accountability from your governments first? I don't want to instigate. I heard the members of Kenya saying reject. The good thing, you have not told that to me, because, and I wouldn't want to take side right now by saying also reject. But I know where the majority are shouting, that's the direction I would go as a politician, naturally. Because as a politician, this job that I'm holding for the last almost 15 years, it's not because I went to school. I'm an environmentalist professionally. I did law. I'm a professional in environmental law. But I'm voted by the majority to defend and protect their interests and rights. So, for me, where the majority go, and I'm able to assess and analyze, I'll go with them, because they are my voters, and they want to, their dreams, they want their interest to be implemented, and that's the reason I'm in parliament, to represent the majority. The interest of the youth, the interest of the women, the disabled, the men, everyone is being represented once you're elected to be a member of parliament. So in this issue of climate justice, inclusion is very key. Now, majority of the people here have already talked about the different frameworks that have been put in place. But if young people are not in, if the women are not in, then we are doing nothing. And that's why I want us to give a big shout to Pakja. That's That's not a big shout. Maybe I didn't mention it well. I meant, can you give a big shout to Pakja for the great initiative? I was telling you about networking. Despite the fact that I'm a member of parliament, despite the fact that I went to school, but my mentor in this whole sector is here with us, and there are two, plus more others, but at least I can mention two who have mentored me. When they met me in parliament, we walked the journey together, and that is none other than Michika Mwenda from Pakja. And that is none other than Jamishi Augustine from Pakja. So therefore, when you're here, don't just underrate anybody. And it doesn't matter who you are. This is a platform where we have to network because the world is evolving very fast and we must work together. The loners, you will run, but you won't reach there. But as a team, you get there. So for now, as a continent and all those countries that are affected most, because as you realize, the whole of Africa, 54 countries. I used to represent Uganda in the Continental Parliament, 54 countries. The whole of Africa, we just emit almost less than 4% on global stage. But we are the ones who are the most hit by the climate injustice. Injustice brought about by the global emitters. And then when you live here, you're going to just keep quiet. Put your government to account on how they are moving on with prioritizing their resources for climate action, inclusion, and how your government is putting global emitters, the G20, the US, the China of this world, and they name them. Because every day we are actually, thank you, Ayele. I hope I pronounce your name well. We have been deviated from the real action within the CCC arrangements. At least I have been in COP now for almost 5. I think if I succeed and I go to Azerbaijan, it will be the 6th COP I'm attending. Yes, someone will accompany me. Thank you. Please take note of your name so that I will be accompanied by someone. But we have been deviated. We've diverted from the real mission. Africa, despite talking about loss and damage, adaptation, we have to adapt. We have to... There's so many terminologies that are being negotiated on. At the end of it all, there's nothing we need. As per the Paris Agreement, already Article 9 talks about the developed countries paying to the least developed countries because of the action they did to cause this global injustice on climate. So when we go to COP, we now there are terminologies that sometimes I don't even understand. Every time there are new what? Terminologies. But let me tell you, friends, all we need is resources. All we need is I appropriate money in parliament. I appropriate money in parliament. I appropriate money to the different votes in the parliament. In the previous 5 years, I sat on the Committee of National Economy of the Republic of Uganda, loans. You find that government is getting money. When they announce this global financing, at the end of it all, in your countries, it comes as loans, indirectly meant for climate action. So at the end of it all, most of the countries are going bankrupt, trying to attend to climate-related issues in country through loans. And then they are saying money is coming to Africa. How? There's nothing like that. The issue that we want throughout all this negotiation is money. Without money, we are just going there for clubbing. It's a club of experts. Club. A club of very smart people in smart suits. So the young people, I know 10 years from now, I will not even be any more closer to being a young person. It will be my sons who are very tall. Actually, right now, they are even taller than me at the age of 12 and 13, who will be talking about climate change and maybe taking action. But right now, the chance, the ball is in your hands. You either take it or deviate from it. And taking action does not mean you... So some of us will be like, I was talking to the summer school youth of last year, and after I addressed them, one of them said, but what should I do now? Because I don't know exactly what I should go and do in my country. Then I said, but were you in when people were speaking? He said, yes, I was in, but I don't understand. What am I going to do? Now, let me tell you, when I was in Uganda and I was a student at the age of 24, what I used to do is to just do advocacy, tree planting. I would take students to my district because I come from a low land, a flat land, and people are cutting trees. I would advocate for local governments to include ordinances in terms of afforestation, to discourage deforestation. All those are actions you are taking. Do not wait for the president of your country or for your member of parliament, elected leaders. Every one of us is a leader in his or her own right. Even in your family, you're a leader. In my constituency, if one time you went to Uganda and crossed to Ngora, every homestead has seedlings, trees that are now 15 years old, planted by me, at least not less than 5. Every homestead. And I would inspect it. Now, this whole trajectory of talking about carbon markets, as a member of parliament, when such comes up, carbon credits, now I'm looking at the regulation. Where are the regulations? Who are the beneficiaries? Who are the what? This is deviation from the facts. We need the money in Africa. We need the money in the least developed countries so that we are able to adapt to the different climate changes. When most of you here think that being an activist, you need to be an environmentalist. You don't need to. How many teachers do we have here? Apart from professors. Can you raise up your hands? How many lawyers? How many doctors? So just know, you don't have to be a professional environmentalist. Climate change issues cut across all our modus operandi, our day-to-day lifestyle. Do you know that if we are talking about just migration, it's expected that by 2050, 1.2 billion people will be displaced from their localities, both internal and outside, because of the diverse effects of climate chaos. That would mean excess refugees. Do you know that arable land in Africa is the food basket of the world? Almost now 70 to 80% of the land in Africa is degraded. So what are you going to do as young people? We are talking about tripling renewable energy by 2030. But Africa, do we have the capacity? Aren't we only assembling the solar panels? Capacity? I mean, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to climate action and climate justice within the continent. And as young people, it's now or never. It is what? Now or never. It's now or never. For me, I don't postpone. Actually, some people think I'm aggressive, and I don't think I am anymore. Because when I was aggressive, I was a student in the University of Makerere. I would mobilize university students. Within 2 days, the whole street of Kampala is packed like this. And everyone would wonder, who is this girl? And I didn't have resources. I was in the guild. I would just connect with the guild presidents, blah, blah, and we were already in the streets. And the president and everyone in Uganda would wake up and say, hey, let's attend to these students' issues. So that should be the area that you should be interested in. Legislations. Let me tell you, right now, I chair the African Parliamentarians Network on Climate Action. In Africa, or actually, right now, we only have now, so far, 8 countries. After we have pushed and pushed, the first country was Kenya, then followed by Uganda. Because I was at the Continental Parliament, I went and moved the bill in the Parliament of Uganda. Now followed by South Africa, Nigeria. Just 8 out of the 54 of our member states have a law on climate change. Some do not even have any law on renewable energy. So if you're coming from Gambia, for example, because I know Gambia doesn't have, Benin doesn't have, Mozambique doesn't have, start from there. Call your members of parliament and say, as young people, we need this as a law, because we cannot you cannot appropriate resources when there is no policy. Can you? No. So, as a young person who is now informed, what are you going to do? So, legislations are very key. And with legislations, we are able to champion and advocate for people's interests, including appropriation for resources for the young people. So, what I would like to emphasize to I was a Mandela Fellow, but now the cohort 4 of the Summer School of Climate Justice. Let us all stand to be counted. When you live here, you can be counted in your household, you can be counted in your village, you can be counted in your institution where you're working. You can be anything you want to be, wherever you want to be. But as long as you stand up, if you remain quiet and seated, and you have gone through this, we want to thank SIDA for sponsoring this program. How I pray it never ends. Please clap for SIDA. Because in so doing, we are building a strong force who will be champions for climate action in the different parts. Tomorrow I will meet you as PSCs, I'll meet you as honorable members, I'll meet you as civil society activists in your different engagements, and I will meet you as decision makers. You're going to be the future negotiators. If you believe, say amen. Amen. If you don't believe, just keep quiet. So with those few remarks, I wouldn't want to say that they are really few, but they always told me, my grandfather always told me that whenever anybody speaks, because they speak so many things, some are uncoordinated, but at least pick one thing that you'll go with, because everyone has something that brings, that you can learn from that person. So, having spoken to you and to the young people, let us not forget our dream. Because normally, I quote Frank Fanon, and that is my quote actually. Frank Fanon ignited me. If we are talking about injustice in climate, and you have already understood our vision and our mission, not only as a continent, but as the world, is to ensure that at least we reduce on the different climate-related effects in our countries. Go and take action. And Frank Fanon once said that every generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its historical mission and either fulfill it or betray it. The ball is in your hands. I thank you for your kind listening.
I thought Honorable Jacqueline will have more hands than what. She gives hope. Okay? She's a typical example of that youth that did not stand up only. She stood out. You know, we can all stand up I'm not asking you to stand up. We can all stand up, but those who make the difference are those who stand up and stand out. Okay? Will you stand out? Thank you. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, in 2006, the Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change took place in Kenya, in Nairobi. In each country where we have the Conference of the Parties, the minister in charge of environment is normally expected to be the Conference of the Parties president. He is not only an academic, he's a politician, a father, a mentor of liberation. Permit me welcome the former governor of Makwene County and COP12 president, a mentor of nearly every activist in Kenya, in the person of Professor Kivutha Kibwana. Please stand up for him. Please stand up as we chair him to the podium. He's here with us. We are not dreaming. Please, may you take your seats. Welcome, Professor.
What do we want? What do we want? When? Now. Okay. Because I think all the protocols have been mentioned. You know, the last three speakers, we share some things, and the other things we don't share. Or maybe one thing that we don't share. Ayele was in civil society before coming to work for Swedish SIDA. And I was in civil society for many years. Pastor Ezekiel, Dr. Ezekiel, we share the fact of, although I'm a lawyer like Jackie, I also have done a course in theology for about 3.5 years. And we share the fact that I'm also a lawyer. But one thing that I don't share with them is their fire. I am a bit soft-spoken, so you will bear with me as I say a few things. I'm indeed very, very privileged for the second time to participate in this cohort 4 of the Nairobi Summer School. And I think it's very instructive that the theme that they chose, PACCHA chose, is igniting youth power for enhanced global solidarity on climate justice. So this is extremely intentional in terms of saying, what can the youth of Africa do, continue to do, so that they are critical actors in this quest for climate justice. And I am very pleased because this is now the 4th time PACCHA is doing this. And at the end of the 2 weeks, there will be about 1,800 people, or let us say 2,000, who will have gone through, let alone those who are doing online, but those who will have gone through this very important program. And I think what is also important, as far as I'm concerned, is they not only involve participants from the continent, from Africa, but they also include participants from other countries of the world, because climate justice is a global issue. So Africa cannot say that they are going to get involved on their own and get the results that are expected. And looking at the documents of PACTURE, one thing that I liked is the fact that in terms of their goals, like to be an African platform of civil society organizations to make information available, to find strategies, to engage with African governments and other important stakeholders, and to stand for justice and fairness in the international climate change dialogue, as well as creating sustainable development processes in order to protect both the climate, the human rights, and the proper growth. So in these 2 weeks you're going to be here, you can see that particular focus, the focus of information, making sure that you really improve what you know, because people are not coming here as tabula rasa, as people who don't know. People are even actors in this particular field. But from my experience, I know that people who have gone through this course get further information to fortify them in their future work. And that is why for both Midhika, Agustin, and your collaborators, you have really done Africa proud by co-creating a climate justice network, which is probably one of the most critical, as has been mentioned earlier, in terms of mobilizing debate, analysis, what to do about climate justice insofar as Africa is concerned. And part of what you will be doing, or are already doing, just like PACTURE does, is to help African governments in their engagement within the global climate justice dialogue. That is one thing that PACTURE has consistently done, and we have been informed that people who have been through this program have actually gone ahead to participate in the COPs in any initiative, global, regional, national, where climate change issues are being canvassed. People have, from this program, have been able to go there and to really assist their governments. And that is one of the things that PACTURE does, and you will be expected to dig into that particular work. PACTURE has been very instrumental in terms of helping these governments to articulate national policies, laws, strategies, both at national level and at the subnational level, because this area, and I think previous speakers have, and as you go through this course, previous speakers have said so, climate change, climate justice, you know, it's technical. And many legislators, many politicians will pretend to know what is involved in this particular area. But sometimes when they go to some of these international conferences, they elect to do more shopping than conferencing. So you know you have work cut out for you in terms of familiarizing yourself with what is the law at international level, the policies, the programs, and the terminologies, and all that kind of together. And like Pakcha brings experts together to help these, governments, and even sometimes to argue with them and to advise. This business of carbon markets is not really going to help. So that is why you have to be very familiar with this terrain so that you can talk authoritatively and persuasively. And of course, Pakcha is very instrumental in terms of saying how the African climate justice agenda can be implemented. And the networks, for example, that they have of even grassroots organizations with farmers, with everybody, it means making sure that you implement up to the very local level, as our member of parliament said, in terms of even from the very household to the village, so that really it's very pervasive. So I think it's very, very, very important, and this has been repeated by Ayele when he talked about the youth quake. By 2025, about a quarter of the youth population in the world will be from Africa. That's next year. So those are many people. You are many people, and because you are many people, you have to understand you are many people. And you have to understand that if you remain on the sidelines, whether it's climate change, whatever it is, then your continent will miss out, and you will miss out. And there will be nobody to complain to because you are the majority. So if you are the majority and you miss out, then there is, a problem. Let me just emphasize something that I touched on briefly, and also various speakers also did so. In what I consider to be my earlier incarnation, as has been mentioned, I was a Minister for Environment and Natural Resources in Kenya for about 2 years. That's how I got to be president of COP 12. And the reason why I was chosen to be the Minister of Environment was many politicians, the older ones, when they were asked to take that docket, they would say it's too complicated. I'm going to be a fool when I go to those international places and I don't know what they're talking about. So you'd better give it to the professor. Even if he has not done environmental law, at least he may be able to make some sense out of, out of that. And it is true that it's a complicated area in terms of understanding, all those conventions and all those, institutions and so on. And that therefore means that when you want to be impactful in this area, you have to make sure that you have real knowledge. There is no shortcut. So that when you sit on a table, at whatever level, you are in dialogue with whoever else is sitting at that table, and they will know we can't tell them things that are not correct, and they'll just accept and will continue doing the negative things that we do. So I think I just want to say that perhaps as you go through these 2 weeks, for me, from previous experience, I do believe they are actually potentially life-changing if one takes them as seriously as, and you have come from far. So when you come from far, most of you, there's no reason not to really take this seriously. It was very competitive. You are already in the market. You are doing these things. So when one takes them seriously, I think you can be adequately equipped to participate anywhere, and you will be standing on your feet, and people will respect you, and you will assist the continent, and that the others who are here of your age, you will be able to do great things together, because that is what is required. So there's that question of really making sure that you have adequate knowledge from this meeting, afterwards, all the time, because it's a very rapidly changing area. So you have to keep on, ensuring that you are relevant. This work, and I think this is something you know, requires partners among yourselves. So you have come here, you'll make friendships, you'll exchange contacts. There are those who have been in court 1 to 3, and there will be a way of you knowing who they are, so that you make networks and you can ask what is happening in another country. What can we gain from there? Just like the Member of Parliament said, there are some countries where certain laws are not there. So that you can say, why don't you give us that? Why don't you tell us what you did to arrive at it? And I think in these 2 weeks, there are strategies. You're kind of, you learn how to strategize and get certain things to happen. It is my hope, Augustine and Midhika, it is my hope that you will help the courts from number 1 to now 4 to you help them to create or found the African Youth Network for Climate Justice, as you did the African Coalition on Sustainable Energy in 2016, because such a network would enable coalition, would enable this voice to be amplified, and that would benefit the continent under your umbrella. And of course, SIDA is here, and SIDA, can take an interest in that kind of African Youth Network for Climate Justice. In your countries, there are national platforms of PAGCHA. So I think even now you're getting into them, you're plugging into them, so that you have that support system to continue your work, because most of you are already in various areas, already doing climate justice work. So those national platforms, in my view, are important venues for engagement. Again, I think working at the subnational level, when like in Kenya, they have, or we have counties. In other places, there's a federal structure or regional structures. I think it's very important, because at the end of the day, that is where the damage really occurs. And that is what causes the poverty that was being described. And is present on the continent. So I think that's a very important place to really do significant work. And Peter, who was here in Floka, this idea of making available resources so that those resources are targeted at the very local levels, and the NGOs which are there, and all those organizations which are there are helped to do work. I think that is quite an important thing to do. I think everybody has emphasized that you are not just working at that national level, regional level, you're also working in the global platform, because that's where the change must be forced, so that we stop being victims, and therefore the question of the resources needed to redress what has been occasioned by particularly the developed countries can be redressed. I think again in your countries, I think it's important to continue to anybody who is relevant in terms of your work. When you work together, there is synergy, and that is really an important thing. So as I promised, I am not as fiery as my colleagues, but I wanted to focus perhaps a little on what are practical things that will assist us in terms of this work which the country is crying, the continent is crying for. And maybe as I conclude, I forgot to also say something we share. She started, she was MP at 25. I was a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, a law lecturer at 23. So we kind of share that as much. But sometimes I don't say a lot because, let me read a poem. Midika, do you allow me to read a poem? Yeah. This is to conclude because of time. I wrote this one so that it's clear. It was not written recently. I wrote it in 2021 in a book called These Words. And actually it is Youth Seed, dedicated for the youth of Africa. And I thought because the youth of Africa are here, maybe I should read this poem. If Africa is eclipsed by a dark continent, the sun to beam humankind's oasis of civilization is a swarming rays of youth. Some say Africa's youth is unschooled, restless, boisterous, uncouth, high voltage. However, young people are the eternal reservoir for nourishing Africa's modernity. If the continent and our youth fail to enact a symbiotically binding social contract, we have entombed Africa alive. How many generations must we miscarry before we can procreate seminal life? In traditional Africa, when fire died from the hearth, a child was sent to a neighbor's to borrow fire. Mother Africa, you must dispatch your youth corps to retrieve fire from society's ashes so as to illuminate and warm Azania. The youth's essence, our energy, inspiration, vitality, creativity, resilience must never again be hijacked. Young persons must renounce the culture of youths for hire. Instead of degrading itself in wild orgies, youth must turn healer. Its spirit must soak Africa, become the miracle remedy of our cancers, union of Africa's body and soul. Youth must gather its talents. Youth must conserve its latent force. Youth must own itself. Youth must purify itself. Youth must organize. Youth must mobilize. The world is the youth's to subdue. Youth must command the world. The tremor of young people's power, which will smash Africa's barren past, which will reassemble Africa's majesty, is rumbling. Listen, prepare, give way. Victory is as certain as sunrise. Africa must endearingly embrace our youth. Youth must draw Africa to his loving heart. Africa must palaver with our youth. Youth must make conversation with youth. Youth must dialogue with Africa and the world. Africa must befriend our youth. Youth must reinvent love. Youth must proclaim, we must live love. Youth must transform itself, worthy heir of Africa's struggle tradition during its pilgrimage to Africa's bosom. Africa's youth must open its eyes to survey the panorama of opportunity as it prepares to awaken the snoring, lethargic, proverbial giant. Africa's renaissance is youth renaissance. Africa's youth, the future is here. The future is the present. The future is now. How can there be ignorance if there is youth? How can there be division, disunity, and discord if there is youth? How can there be betrayal if there is youth? How can there be hatred if there is youth? How can there be despair and despondency if there is youth? How can there be disbelief if there is youth? How can there be poverty if there is youth? How can there be war if there is youth? How can there be no community if there is youth? How can there be disempowerment if there is youth? From this moment to God's eternity, each young person, just like every African woman or man, must count a precious human being. Youth are the designers of the fresh, each person counts society. You're either for the youth, the people, Africa, or you're against them. Youth must rightfully demand equity through a share of Africa. Africa's resources, the market, income, wealth, and well-being. Youth must guarantee African governance is chiefly governance by the youth, of the youth, for the youth, and others. Africa, you must now pass the leadership baton to the youth generation. Youth must hold society in trust for the people of Africa, because youth is custodian of the continent's spirit of liberty. Youth must stand tall and erect on the crossroads of ancient, modern, and future Africa, because youth are the eyes through which Africa will encounter Afro-optimism. Youth must birth our Africa. Always remember, sacrifice, pleasure, pain, blood, and joy are companions of every noble birth. Youth of Africa, your Africa is waiting. Don't keep our people slaves any longer. Unchain their mind. Let them be truly free at last. Africa and your youth, where is your redemption anthem? Thank you. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? When?
Now. When do you want it?
Viva! Viva the youth of Africa!
Wow. What a nice, beautiful way of ending a session. I got a new word. Afro-optimism. Afro-optimism. Can you say that again? Optimism. Afro-optimism. When Africans are looked upon like uneducated, uncoordinated, emotional, and what have you, the word Afro-optimism comes to cancel everything. Thank you, Professor. Now, you have come, you've seen, you've heard. When you go back home, if summer school were to end now, you have something to take back home. It is your right to participate in climate decision making at all levels. When you go to the Ministry of Environment and ask, where is the adaptation money that you borrowed from the World Bank? Where is it going to? Is it going to that mother, your grandmother? Or is it staying in the offices to feed the pockets of politicians? I have nothing against them. I intend to be one in the near future. and they give you the information, it is not a favor. It is your right. Principle 10 of the Rio Declaration is to the effect that sustainable development can only be attained if citizens have access to information, participate in decision making, and have access to justice when these rights are infringed upon. Article 6 of the UNFCCC, that's the convention, encourages civil society and other stakeholders to bring innovative ways of educating and taking climate action. Article 12 of the Paris Agreement calls on everyone, parliamentarians, civil society, the youth, women, to take climate action. How can we take climate action when we are not informed? How can we take climate action when we are not allowed to participate in climate decision making? So when you move from here, do crazy things. Ask for accountability. As Gandhi said, Mahatma Gandhi said, first they will ignore you. Then they will laugh at you. Then they will fight you. And then you win. Go and fight. Do those crazy things. They will first ignore you because it's youthful exuberance. They will laugh at you because you are crazy, you seem crazy. Then when they see that it's serious, they start fighting you. But what do? You will win. Go home and win. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, what do you want? What do you want? When do you want it? Now. When do you want it? Now. Professor said he does not share something with us because he does not have that fire. He's just being humble. While we may be fire that is seen from white flames, he's the blue flames. Because in that humility, there is fire that is hotter than the white flames. The father of reject. So, again, thank you very much, Professor. We are honored to have you here, still looking after us. Merci, mesdames et messieurs. Nous avons arrivé au thème de cette session. Je pense que nous avons été honorés par la présence des éminents professeurs, politiciens et scientifiques. Donc, si jamais on terminait cette école d'été aujourd'hui, je pense que nous avons gagné quand même quelque chose. Le but de cet événement, c'est de nous encadrer, de nous encourager. Malgré les difficultés qu'on aura en face, il faut forcer, il faut pousser jusqu'à la fin. Merci beaucoup et à bientôt. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Augustine Jamshi. Thank you so much for moderating the session. Let's clap for our panelists again. Even if we close the school now, even before opening, I think you go home with something, isn't it? Yes. Very well, very well. We have mentors. We don't have shortage of mentors in Africa. And we are very, very grateful to all of you. Thank you so much, Dr. Esmo. Thank you so much, Honorable Jacqueline. Thank you so much, Professor Kivutha Kibwana. Thank you so very much, everyone, and Ayere Kabede again, really, for your support and such a wonderful presentation. Now, I dare ask, what do you want now? You are eyeing, you want your ranch now, I'm sure. Anyway, I can guarantee ranch is served from the hospitality of Chuka University. But before then, allow me to take just 2 minutes to play a video, a very short video, 3 minutes. And then I think we are going to give guidance in terms of how we will take our ranch. So, IT, David, are you ready?
Hello.
Hello, Sambonani. I am originally from Cameroon.
My name is Lamek. I am from Kenya.
I'm Zandi Silehao from the beautiful kingdom of Eswatini.
My name is Loki Aben from Nigeria.
My name is Mithika Mwenda, the Executive Director of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance.
My name is Professor Henry Mutembei, the Vice Chancellor of Chuka University.
Welcome to the incredible journey
Of learning and growth
where you discover the power of collective action.
and the importance of climate justice.
You engage with leading experts, passionate activists.
And like-minded peers from across the globe.
This experience will challenge you, inspire you, and equip you with the tools to make a real impact.
You will live here not just as an advocate, but as a leader who is ready to drive change within your community.
The connections you will make here will last a lifetime, and together we can build a more strong and sustainable world.
To the new cohort of 2024, welcome to the Nairobi Summer School on Climate Justice.
which takes place at Chuka University from 24th June to 7th July.
The essence of the cohort 4 is to trigger the youthful voice and to trigger these voices that can influence sustainable management of our climate in various communities.
Embrace this opportunity to ignite your passion, expand your horizons, and join the movement that transcends borders. Together,
Together,
we can achieve climate justice for all.
Thank you. And those beautiful voices represent some of our graduates from Cohort 1, Cohort 2, and Cohort 3. And soon, you'll be joining them in a platform which we call South to South platform, youth platform on climate justice, which brings together all the alumni of summer school. So the journey begins now. So thank you so very much. I now want to invite you for lunch. So lunch is served on ground floor, first floor, and second floor. So the choice is yours. And for our dignitaries, Kaidri, your lunch is served at the Vice Chancellor's boardroom where you took your tea. Now after this, you have your free afternoon so that you can relax. I'm sure there are people who slept at midnight, some past midnight. So you have some time to prepare yourselves, prepare your books, in readiness to start your classes tomorrow. We'll be seated here by 8 to start the next leg of action. Thank you so very much. Enjoy your meal. Bon appetit. Thank you.
Out for our lunch, we requested that we leave behind the receivers and the head sets for the purpose of tomorrow's interpretation. They're very critical, so you are requested that we leave them behind your seats as we go out. For those who did not register your registration or you did not do any registration,